Um, Thank you all for letting me be here today. I'm humbled and rolling. I'm humbled to be here. When I had invited to join you today and was told that the topic was professional relationships, intentional relationships. I don't know. I'll get into that in a minute. But you'll have to bear with me. As she said, I have 8 kids. I still have to count these 2 because they are just great, amazing kids, and I love them. And they still take up a considerable amount of my time. But and a business and a full-time job now, which I'll talk about a little bit. And so I have a little bit of time and a lot of brain fog. So I've written out my notes, and I may lean on them a lot. So if I don't make the eye contact that you're supposed to make as a good public speaker once in a while, please forgive me for that. Like I said, when I was asked to talk to you today, I was asked if I could speak to you about intentional relationships in the workplace in particular. And at first, as I look back on my professional career, and not even counting like the jobs in high school, but actual like adulting, it spans 20 different jobs or business opportunities across, like she said, 7 different career choices. So I really didn't know if I was the right guy for this talk. Maybe I don't have the intentional relationships I thought I did. But, especially when you consider that I was let go from 4 of those jobs. One of them I didn't even get the chance to start. So that's life, right? You fail forward, you move forward, and you do the things that you got to do. But that left me wondering, am I the guy that should be talking to you today? But I'm going to trust God that He put this all together. So when I realized that through that maybe there is a little bit of wisdom I could share. Everything I've done, it's kind of led me to this point. And more importantly, everyone I've met along the way has helped me, either purposefully helped me or through a life lesson dealing with difficult or unsafe people. So it's helped me to lean on God more and see a little bit of His perspective for my life. I'll give you an example in just a minute, but let me give you just a quick breakdown of my career. And I'm not bragging because it hasn't, I drove here myself today, and there's no private plane waiting for me at Seward International or anything like that. So this isn't about my successes as an individual in professional life, but more so just about my experience. As a commercial photographer and video producer, I've traveled all over the country. I've interviewed CEOs from huge companies like Gallup and Valmont, which is a local company. I've worked for clients like Adidas and Cabela's in Nebraska tourism, which is really a difficult job to market Nebraska. It's a beautiful state, but we all know it's not for everyone. Don't give those folks a lot of static. It's a tough job, and they've gotten a lot of airtime, free airtime with that slogan. So, and it's true, it's not for everyone. But I've gotten to hang out at helicopters and fly with crop dusters, which are far crazier than helicopter pilots, I might tell you. And I've gotten to wear hazmat suits and go into crazy situations in laboratories, factories, in nature. One of my favorites is in people's homes. I've been in a lot of people's homes in very personal conversations with them through this part of my career. I've been in the rodeo ring. I've been thrown from a horse and chased by a buffalo. I'll never forget that buffalo. Their heads are really huge when they get up close. And I've had to find like bucket trucks out in the middle of nowhere so I could get a photographer up high. Or I even had to once rent a horse in the middle of nowhere and get permission to let a man dressed like Wild Bill ride it on a golf course. Lots of crazy things. I've got to meet professional athletes and some real true-to-life, down-to-earth, just regular people. I've talked my way into powwow celebrations and zoo animal exhibits, military forts, and the personal lives of thousands in face-to-face heartfelt interviews. I've been on an executive leadership team at a startup and an established company, 2 different deals there. I've helped run a nonprofit for media, worked for media content producers, sold real estate, washed dishes, waited tables. I ran a control board at a radio station. I was a pin setter mechanic at a bowling alley. That was a crazy job. I've managed camera stores and printed photographs for a living, and I was a convenience store clerk where Cindy, who many of you have had speak here, you've heard her, she was my girlfriend at the time. She used to bring her friends into the convenience store and kind of chuckle at me and call me Gas Boy. That was her nickname for me there, so funny. But as a coffee shop owner, in a little bit different part of my life, quick plug, if you're in Lincoln, come on down to the harbor and have a latte with me. You got to be on all the time. You've got to know, when you own a business, you always have to be professional. You always have to be courteous and mindful of how you're being perceived by others. And you strive to be friendly to everyone, able to talk to anyone that comes into your business. We have a clientele that ranges from students to retired judges and politicians and doctors and lawyers. And we've got more than our fair share of little old ladies playing bridge in the afternoon too. There's Don, who comes in the morning at 6:30 a.m. on the dot every morning to do his crossword puzzle. It's the highlight of his day. And then we've got Matt, who's a 57-year-old guy, and he's a kid in heart and in mind. And I know it's his birthday today because he spent all morning telling everyone in the shop, hey, it's my birthday today, and giving hugs. And he's a great little guy that comes in every day. We've got regulars who quite literally live life with us, and it's pretty amazing and pretty fun. We have business meetings going on all the time, and nonprofits, Bible studies, and other groups meeting constantly. You don't get too political, and you're always happy. And sometimes it's pretty hard. It's difficult. You don't always want to be on. You don't always want to be, that person. And so you have to kind of manage that, and you have to be genuine with people so that they really understand that you value your relationship with them, with all of them, even if you don't always remember their names. 5,000 to 6,000 people come in every month, and they all feel like they're a part of our family, which I love. It's an awesome culture, and it's amazing to be a part of, but it takes real intentionality to accomplish that. And it takes a lot of God there in that place. We pray constantly for our purpose there and our meaning for being there. There's really some awesome stuff happening there in our shop, and God's working all the time in the lives of our staff and our customers. We love that. I'm currently starting out on my second run as a real estate professional. In this profession, you're dealing sometimes with people who are very attracted to their home. They take everything very personally. You have to help them understand that your objectivity works in their best interest, and that you have to communicate to them in a loving way that just because they love that purple trim in the bedroom or that lava lamp chandelier that they made over the dining room table, those things are probably going to have to go if they want to sell their house. You have to have a lot of, I don't want to say finesse, but you got to be able to kind of help them through that process. But the common thread in all of this is really just people. In all of my different jobs, the skill that's brought me the most benefit and the most gratification and joy has been my ability to talk to all different kinds of people. But it's not just about talking. Some of my most satisfying relationships with people have been through my work. The world refers to it as networking, and in order to get ahead in your career or in life, you have to meet the right people, you have to network. It's really kind of a completely self-serving concept if you look at it from that perspective. Don't get me wrong, I believe in networking, but I like to look at it a bit differently. The world view of networking in business is all about making your position better. It's about ensuring the next sale or landing the next deal, or winning the next bid, or putting people in your funnel or your pipeline. You might have heard those things if you're in a marketing class or something like that. And that's all important, but I really feel like God tells us not to worry about all of that, much less like boast about it. And so, I think about James 4:13 and 14, where he says, "Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow, we will go to this city or that city and we'll spend a year there, carry on business and make money. Why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow." So I don't know that networking is all about, bettering our position. So my approach to it is not about what I can get, but what I can give. When I approach a new relationship, and I seek them out as often as I can, I want to learn about that person. I want to learn about you, what your needs are, what drives you, what inspires you, what breaks your heart or makes you soar, how you see the world, and if you know Jesus. I want to discover how I can help you reach your goals, your dreams, or solve your problems. This approach has blessed me with relationships that have carried over from business to personal, mutually enriching opportunities where I can learn and grow from knowing them, and I'm able to share Christ with them, and over the years, just develop camaraderie and solid, purposeful interaction. One such relationship with a man who I met while working for an advertising agency. He was a very successful radio broadcaster, and it was supposed to be my last long-form video. It was supposed to be the last project that was more than 30 seconds. I made TV ads and things like that, and the ad agency we were working for, I was looking to build their commercial photography business. So my job as a video producer was going to get out of long-form projects that were like, 10, 20-minute videos, things like that, and focus on the short projects so I could build that business. That's what it was supposed to be. After working with him for a short time, I was on assignment to shoot his portrait for the back of his book. So I went out to his cabin in South Bend, between Lincoln and Omaha. It was a beautiful place. He took me around, showed me around. But before I knew it, it was just him and I, and we were actually singing karaoke in his rec room. And it was awesome and awkward all at the same time. I was looking at his tapes he had an old karaoke machine with cassette tapes and things like that, and I was looking over here at those, and over here, before I knew it, the Sweet Caroline from Neil Diamond started playing out of the speaker, and I said, "They're going, oh man, what's going to happen next?" And so he starts singing, and then, Sweet Caroline, and then he, with the mic, right? So what do you do when your top 10 client, asks you to sing Neil Diamond with you? You do it. That was it was a great experience, and it really kind of set the stage for what was going to be, to this day. I was on my phone with him this morning, on my way out here, continuing to help him professionally and living life with him personally. I talk to him once or twice a week, and I still do work for him. We hug, we share I love yous. When we part, he's really kind of been like a father to me in a lot of ways. Last time we got together was a couple weeks ago, and he told me how thankful he was that God had brought us together. And he and I had never spoke much about my faith, but about 3 years into our relationship, I felt led to give him a Bible, because I didn't know where he was in his walk with God. And so I just said, "Hey, you've taught me so much about business. I'd love to just share with you a little bit about one of the great loves of my life, or the great love of my life, and I hope it inspires you." I purposefully didn't try and preach to him or force my faith on him. I just did my best to plant a seed and be a good friend. And that was 15 years ago. We've had a lot of conversations since. I know all about his challenges, his failures, his successes in life and business. I ask him about his family, his kids, and his grandkids. I keep tabs on his health because he's in his 80s now. I call to make sure he's doing okay regularly. He asks me about my kids and what they're up to, and Cindy and how she's doing. Of course, he can't remember all their names, but Peter can I always. So, our business together is always peppered with this deep personal friendship and relationship, and it's really a wonderful thing. At that same meeting last week that we had lunch, he told me about how he keeps that Bible on his desk, and it's very dear to him. It's one of my most cherished relationships that I've developed out of my professional life. And I told him at lunch last week that in a conversation with Cindy a long time ago, I told her, I said, it doesn't matter how much success or failure comes out of this relationship with this man. I just want him to know that he's loved. I want him to know the grace and power of our Creator and the mercy that he showed us through Jesus. I told him that. And I was pretty nervous telling him that because we've never really gotten that, that far into it. And so I was a little nervous about getting that deep into it with him. And that's when he told me about how he keeps that Bible that I gave him so many years ago on his desk. And he just again reiterated that, he's so thankful to God. So it's great to hear him talking about God, and it's his walk that I get to be a part of it. So, we just kind of smiled, and we were having chicken fried steak out around the bend, and finished up lunch, hugged it out, and left, because we had work to do. We had also discussed a little bit of work. I never would have had that opportunity to have this relationship in my life if I hadn't accepted that project back in 2001. And the truth is, over the years, it's been a difficult project. God's not interested in the outcome of that project. He's really more interested in what I just described to you, our relationship together. Joseph in the Bible was a fantastic networker. He built intentional relationships all around him. He prospered because he focused on glorifying God and when insight came to him and when good things happened, and refused credit for that insight. Whether it was in Potiphar's house, prison, or as Pharaoh's man in charge, he was always discovering ways to help others. And Jesus poured his time and energy into 12 men. He knew that this investment would bring honor to the Father, and these men, who were not particularly exceptional in any way, were deliberately chosen by Jesus to build his church. He chose them so as to honor God when these men fulfilled God's will and rose to the challenge. He built them up and lived life with them. He rebuked them, and he praised them. Jesus was perfectly intentional with these men and knew that God wanted him to have deep personal relationships, just as God longs for us with him. To shift gears just a little bit, and I'm almost done. I appreciate your time. But there's this thing in your brain, and my kids have probably heard me talk about it. It's called the reticular activating system. Has anybody ever heard of that? No? Okay, great. Well, it is a real thing. It's in your brain, and it's near the base of your brainstem. And this little piece of your brain acts as a filter. Our senses are constantly flooded with information, and this filter helps us determine what's important. It lets in relative information, and it passes over irrelevant information. For instance, until I mentioned the feeling of your feet and your shoes, you probably weren't thinking of it, but now you are. Another example is, has anybody recently bought a car? No one? Anyone? Okay, what kind of car is it? A Honda CR-V. Okay, that's a great car, right? Yeah, okay. So when you bought that car, if you think back to the day that you bought that car, right, and you pulled off of the lot, did you realize that everybody went out and bought a Honda CR-V that day? It seemed like they were all over the place, weren't they? Could you see them? You see them more? Yeah. So what happens is that that's relevant when you make a purchase like a car. You want that affirmed, right? So your brain says, find all the affirmations you can find about what I just did, because I don't want it to be a mistake, right? So basically, the reason I bring that up is because if you start seeking out intentional relationships with the focus of sharing Christ through your actions and thinking of others first, it will become relevant to you. And opportunities will present themselves to build long-lasting, life-enriching relationships with people you may have never suspected God would put in your path. People like an 80-year-old radio broadcaster who's a Neil Diamond fan that happens to have taught marketing strategy all over the world. So be courageous, reach out to those you admire in areas where you're weak and say, hey, I'd love some help with this. I see you crushing it here. You know, I'd love to be able to build a relationship with you and learn how you do what you do. You'll find that God will use you to help that person in some way as well. I've sought out the counsel of many in this way, whom I call my phantom board of directors. These guys for me are astute in areas of my life I need guidance, which is like pretty much every area. So I encourage you to build out your phantom board of directors, meet with them once in a while, regularly, and ask them hard questions and listen intently as they share with you. So as you consider your professional relationships, your LinkedIn accounts, which I know some of you think that's Snapchat for old people, but I know that you've got them because I've connected with some of you on LinkedIn, so that's good. But as you build your professional networking groups, or your associations, your trade affiliations, that you'll most likely, join when you started doing more adulting yourself, I guess. I just challenge you with this. Shift your paradigm from one that's, how do I better my position professionally, to more of one that's, I want God to use me in this relationship to glorify Him and share Christ and